Hi guys, this is Kirk from Quick Draw Mods, and today I'm going to cover pad shift. Pad shift is a phenomenon that can happen on any controller. There's a pad under these 7 buttons, and when you push on one of the buttons, the pad makes contact with the controller board, which is how you get your button press. Same with the D-pad, there's also a pad underneath here. Sometimes you'll notice that a button's hard to press, so you have to jam on it really hard in order to get it to register. Maybe it didn't happen before. Maybe you got a controller in the mail and out of the box it's just not working right. You know, every other button works, but one of them just doesn't feel right. Perhaps one of the buttons doesn't work at all, but all the other ones do. Chances are that if any of those 7 buttons work, there's nothing wrong with the button that's not working. It's just that the pad shifted and it's not making proper contact with the board. So I'm going to show you how to realign a controller for pad shift. First thing you need to do is take off your battery cover. You can clearly see 6 screws. This controller, the X button's a little touchy. You know, you push on it and it just doesn't feel right, where the other one's nice and loose. So we're going to fix pad shift. Basically, you need to take out your 7 screws. The first one is underneath the serial label. Those of you with rapid fire controllers might already have the serial label removed, or you might have just a hole there already so you could see the screw. For those of you with retail controllers, new controllers, or controllers that we carefully peeled the label for you and put it back, you're going to want to just go through the label and take it out. Of course, you want to peel it off, that's up to you. We find it easier just to pop the screwdriver through it. So, once you remove the 7 screws, you need to open the controller. Opening the controller is very simple. This part here, where the batteries rest in, we like to pull on this. Make sure you hold the controller from the top sync plate and bottom mic plate, and just kind of pull on. You can use some leverage, push down on the front and pull up on the back, and it should open right up, come right off. Now, as you can see, whoops, the pad for the controller is right here between the board and the buttons. So, what we're going to do is remove the circuit board. You don't have to pull the rumble motors off, and you don't have to worry about the sticks. Everything comes out in one motion. Now you can just pull from the back here, but you'll see that there's this round circle here that kind of holds the board in place. It's slightly bigger than the actual hole. You know, granted, over time pulling it in and out, it'll wear and just slide in and out, but you know, Microsoft tries to hold the board in place, you know, so that you can go like this upside down and it kind of just stays in. So the easiest way is to take your Torx screwdriver and put it in this little area here that's kind of open. You can get your Torx screwdriver in between the mic plate and the board, and just kind of use a little bit of pressure, a little bit, until it pops off that round holder. Okay, now one motion, just lift the whole thing out and just put it down. Now, next thing you want to check is make sure all your buttons, just tap them from the bottom. Now you'll notice this one was a little sticky. This is the B button. You might want to clean it. No, seems good now. Okay. Sometimes you need to clean your buttons. They might be a little sticky. Sometimes, you know, when you open the controller up, it just might have, you know, fell out of the socket. You could just put it right back in. Make sure all your buttons are even and in. And while I'm pointing it out, if you happen to get pad shift on your D-pad, you'll notice that it's got its own little holder right here. The pad, if you've got your pad wrapped around this little holder here, then it's sitting correctly. And when it comes to your actual controller board, which these are the D-pad contacts, these will be perfectly lined up. And then you'll notice over here that there's the 7 contacts that I was telling you about. So, a lot of people tell you to lay the pad over here and put it all back together. That's ridiculous. You'll notice that the buttons push on these parts of the pads, these little parts that are up, and when they do push on the pad, these little black, they're actually magnetic type copper things. I don't know exactly what they are, but they're definitely conductive. They make contact. You'll see there's a line separating. It connects the two lines, and that's your button press. So, take the little parts that are sticking up, like I said. Make sure that they evenly lay in all the holes. You'll see they're nice and flat and even. Push on a button. Okay. Oops. Okay. Whoa. Not remaking the video because I almost knocked over the tripod. Now the reason why we hold the controller upside down, again, I mean, obviously we all know about gravity. If that pad was out and we had it the other way, buttons would fall all over the place, especially when opening it up. That's why when we opened it up, I opened it like this. That way the board and everything's still in. Even if the board fell out and it wasn't on that little round thing, the buttons don't go all over the place. But this way, we've got our pad back on. All our buttons and everything are down using the force of gravity. Everything's, gravity's holding everything in place for us. Now just take your controller board, lay it back in. Make sure your thumbsticks come through the holes, and it should fall right back down on there for you. Put your rumble motors in the holders. Now, you'll notice that it sits right above that round hole that I was telling you about. Just take your fingers, just kind of push down on it. It'll come through, it'll hold it in place. Things to check before you do anything else: make sure your bumpers work, make sure your sync button clicks. If those three things are good, your board is in fine. You'll notice, the pad over here seems to have laid perfectly across the buttonhole. Chances are that if you did this, your pad shift is gone, and everything should work fine. I mean, if you want, you can hold the board in place using your hand, from both sides, and just push on the buttons, just to see if they feel right for you. Same with your D-pad. Everything feels good. Everything feels fresh and new. So, let's put our motors back in. Let's make sure that when we put our motors back in, that we actually hide the wires. We don't want the wires actually being over these holes, because we're going to put screws through these, and we don't want to end up clipping them, or when we put them back together, we don't want the shell crunching the wires. So what I like to do is I like to just spin the motors, and as I spin them, the wires kind of hide themselves. They're nice and tight. They're in there. Now, excuse me. To put the back shell back on, you're going to see that these two little, they look like rails. These rails are the guides for the springs. So what we're going to do, we're going to just kind of make sure that the springs are lined up with those rails. We're going to push down on it a little bit, but you'll notice that the triggers are preventing us from closing it, and again, it just, does something like that. So what you want to do is you want to line up your rear screws and just kind of pull forward on them so that it actually clears the triggers. Once it clears the triggers, you can kind of just snap the whole controller into place. It's pretty simple. Once it's all together, even with no screws, again, you should be able to test all your buttons, your sync, make sure everything clicks, make sure everything feels good, make sure your thumbsticks are on right, they didn't kind of fall off when you put them back together. And that's it. Your pad shift problem should be resolved. Just basically take your Torx and put all your screws back in. And I'm not going to actually bore you with me putting all 7 screws back in, just the one. I've got a magnetic screwdriver, so I can kind of do this on camera. Here we go. And even just that one screw is enough to kind of hold the controller together if you want to go test it real quick. and that should be good. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck. Thanks.